only thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we burn, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
President Thomas Jefferson said, "I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society, but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power."
Well, welcome to WallBuilders Live. It's Foundations of Freedom Thursday. It's our opportunity to dive into the Constitution, the Declaration, and into your questions about the foundations of America and our history. We got a ton of questions folks have been sending in. Can't get to all of them, but we'll see what we got on the top of the stack here. Got a question coming from Mildred, and she says, David Barton, good evening. I was watching the History Channel Sunday night and was appalled at the blatant lies and historical distortions being put forth in the guise of historical fact. It was quite disturbing. In particular, the attack on Christianity as it relates to American history. In fact, a professor, she puts that in quotes, I thought you'd enjoy that, a professor from Notre Dame of all places, how ironic, stated that our founding fathers, such as Jefferson, hated Christianity and considered it a dangerous religion. He went on to say, this professor, that Thomas Jefferson advised others to stay away from Christianity. They depicted Christians as bloodthirsty torturers of Muslims and Jews through the Inquisition. These type of lies must be challenged and called out. I felt you should know what this so-called History Channel is doing, albeit in a very underhanded and sneaky fashion. The show was about, the show she was actually watching was about extraterrestrials, and they bring this into it. I hope you can look into the broadcast and perhaps challenge the accuracy of such claims. Thanks for all you do for America and for teaching on our foundations. You do an enormous service educating the people. So David, Jefferson had, I guess, some experience with Christians and Muslims. I mean, tell us what his perspective really was on this.
Well, the way that Mildred has described this to us, and I'm going to respond to her characterization of it, because I find her characterization to be quite common for what we see in lots of other books and TV programs, etc. I did not see this particular program. I am aware of others like this. And so let me respond to the characterizations, because her characterizations, while I don't know specifically this program, they're accurate for what's out there in so many of these programs on History Channel and Discovery and others. Let's take the part about the Founding Fathers depicting Christians as bloodthirsty torturers of Muslims and Jews throughout the Inquisition. Number one, that's false. There are 250 Founding Fathers, or folks we call Founding Fathers. You have 55 at the Constitutional Convention, 56 who signed the Declaration, 90 did the Bill of Rights, etc. You got generals and governors and the Patrick Henrys and John Jays. I don't know of a single one that has associated American Christianity with that. But notice that I did use that adjective, American Christianity. The Founding Fathers were quite clear that Christians in the Middle Ages did torture Muslims and Jews in the Inquisition. But that's not the history of America. As a matter of fact, they made a big distinction between European Christianity and between American Christianity. And I'll just pull up some of the statements that they make. And by the way, the difference is, when you look at American Christianity, that's Christianity after the Reformation. When you're looking pre-Reformation for about 1,000 years, that's Christianity in which the Bible had no role. You had high illiteracy. People did not read, could not read. The Bible was not available to them. It was not in their language. Folks who tried to bring the Bible to the common man got themselves killed, whether it's Wycliffe or Huss or others. So you have...
You almost can't call it Christianity. It was really a hijacked religion. It was abuse of power in the name of Christianity.
Well, let me just read to you this one particular quote from Noah Webster. And this is Noah Webster, Founding Father, responsible for Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 8 of the Constitution. He was a judge. He was a legislator. He's one of the key guys in securing ratification efforts of the Constitution. So Founding Father Noah Webster, this is typical of what you see the founders say. They say the ecclesiastical establishments of Europe which serve to support tyrannical governments, are not the Christian religion, but their abuses and corruptions of it. Now, that's the big deal. They said, hey, when you look at Europe and you see what happened there, that's not Christianity. That's an abuse and a corruption of Christianity. That's what happens when you don't have the Bible. If you look at the very first public school law passed in America, the Old Diluter Satan Act in 1647, that act says, hey, we just came out of Europe, and what they call Christianity over there is full of atrocities. That's not it. We don't want that in America. So in America, we're going to make sure that the Bible is the basis of all public schools, because if you read the Bible, you won't do those atrocities. And here's kind of the way it worked. Back then, when they couldn't read and the Bible was not available to them, their spiritual leader or their civil leader who claimed to be a spiritual leader would stand up and say, hey guys, you remember those Jews? They're the ones who killed Jesus. Jesus would be really happy if you'd go kill some Jews. And so in the Rhine Valley and the First Crusade, you have about 12,000 Jews slaughtered on the spot, converted, be killed. There is nothing in the Bible that supports coercive Christianity. It is, if anyone wants, whosoever will, come, and he can partake. But now there's a consequence if you don't voluntarily come. I mean, you choose heaven and hell. Christians believe that's a voluntary choice, but no coercion. And nowhere in Jesus' ministry did he use coercion. Now, Revelation says he'll come back at the last days as a warrior, as a king. He'll rule with a rod of iron based on the decisions you've made. But there's no coercion in this thing. So coercion was always out. And those who were in the Reformation taught that that is the right Christianity. It is supposed to be voluntary. It is supposed to be non-coercive. It is supposed to be religiously tolerant. It is supposed to be by choice.
So not only not a conversion at the sword, but also let someone make, if they choose another religion, you can live in peace with those people. You can let them have a different belief system than you and be in the same community. Real quick break, David. We'll be right back and pick up where we left off. Stay with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
Abraham Lincoln said, "We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution."
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. The key to a self-governing nation is self-governing people, and the key to personal self-government is to live by the standards in God's Word. If someone cannot control himself by those standards, then our Constitution certainly will be unable to restrain him. Understanding this, John Adams declared, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion. Greed, ambition, revenge, or seduction would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." John Adams believed that successful government rested not upon our great Constitution, but rather upon moral and religious people.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Abraham Lincoln said, "We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution."
Welcome back. It's Foundations of Freedom Thursday here on WallBuilders Live. We've been taking a question from one of our listeners, and it deals with really a misperception about the Founding Fathers and Christianity and their treatment of Muslims and Jews. And David, you were talking about in the first segment how this perception of torturing and forced conversions at the sword and that sort of thing, and the difference between this European Christianity before the Reformation and the Christianity after the Reformation, and what the founders saw as American Christianity.
The Founding Fathers made a big distinction between Christianity in America, which is post-Reformation, and Christianity in Europe pre-Reformation. For example, John Jay, Founding Father, described the Christianity in America as being, quote, wise and virtuous. John Quincy Adams described Christianity in America as, quote, civilized. John Adams described Christianity in America as, quote, rational. And Daniel Webster may have said it as well as anyone. He said, Christianity in America is Christianity to which the sword and the faggot is the hot burning iron. That's where they would brand you, get a red hot iron and stick it in you, and that was Inquisition stuff. He said, Christianity in America is Christianity with the sword, which is the coercion. We're going to kill you if you don't convert. And the faggot, which is the burning stake, are unknown. He said general tolerant Christianity is the law of the land in America. So there's a big distinction. And so for anybody that's a professor to say, oh, no, the Founding Fathers depicted Christians as bloodthirsty torturers of Muslims and Jews throughout the Inquisition, no. They absolutely abhorred what went on in the Middle Ages and the Inquisition. I mean, that was something, that's why they believed in separation of church and state, because you're supposed to separate the two institutions, because that's what God said to do. I mean, he established it where that Moses was over the civil affairs, Aaron was over the spiritual affairs, and you're not supposed to have one person running theology and running the military. And that's what you had. And that's the problem, by the way, with Muslims right now, is they have never had a reformation. And I don't know that I agree with Bill Maher on anything he says. That is a program I cannot handle. And yet I do agree with him in that he said, guys, I don't like Christians, but Christians aren't burning people at the stake. They aren't killing people. They aren't beheading people. That was 500 years ago. Christians haven't done that in 500 years. Even Bill Maher gets that there's a difference between Christianity now and then. And so any professor who says the Founding Fathers didn't understand that difference has not read the Founding Fathers materials. That's a professor who himself does not like the Founding Fathers, does not like Christianity, and I don't care if you are at Notre Dame or what. That's a complete misportrayal of history. So that aspect of it, I mean, they're just absolutely dead wrong there. Now, they are right that the Founding Fathers saw Christians, and that was in quotes, because as Noah Webster said, it's not genuine Christianity. He says it's an abuse and a corruption of Christianity, and that's what the Founding Fathers saw it. So to say that that's what Jefferson and anyone else promoted, that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, it's and not only is it wrong historically. I mean, he's completely twisting it and leaving out so much in order to push an agenda. Too often happens on our college campus. We got to take a quick break. Back in a moment, right here on WallBuilders Live.
Thomas Jefferson said, "The Constitution of most of our states and of the United States assert that all power is inherent in the people, that they may exercise it by themselves, that it is their right and duty to be at all times armed, that they are entitled to freedom of person, freedom of religion, freedom of property, and freedom of press."
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court recently overturned the jury sentence of a man convicted of the brutal murder of a 71-year-old woman because the prosecuting attorney had mentioned a Bible verse in the courtroom. Yet consider what happened in the 1778 case, Respublica versus John Roberts. Thomas McKean, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, was the Chief Justice of that court, and addressing John Roberts after the jury had sentenced him to death for treason, McKean told him, "You will probably have but a short time to live. Before you launch into eternity, it behooves you to repent of your evil deeds, to be incessant in prayers to the great and merciful God to forgive your manifold transgressions and sins, to teach you to rely upon the merit and passion of a dear Redeemer." This prominent founding father actually delivered a salvation message to the defendant in the courtroom.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Samuel Adams said, "The liberties of our country and the freedom of our civil constitution are worth defending against all hazards, and it is our duty to defend them against all attacks."
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. It's Foundations of Freedom Thursday, taking your questions today. And the question we've started with, David, is the question of whether or not the Founding Fathers, in fact, were the old school Christian kind of mentality that you described in our first segment that was very different, according to the Founding Fathers, from American Christianity, and that we don't force people at the sword to convert.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with that. We've already looked at the fact that European Christianity, very different from American Christianity. Founders made a big distinction. This professor apparently did not, and most of the professors I know do not. But I mentioned that even Bill Maher, was able to make that distinction as someone who absolutely despises Christianity. So that's all wrong. But there's another aspect here that really stands out. And just, again, reading from the email, that this professor said that our founding fathers, such as Thomas Jefferson, hated Christianity and considered it a dangerous religion. Now, our founding fathers are the ones who hated Christianity and considered it a dangerous religion and gave Thomas Jefferson as an example. This is the kind of fun I have with others who say, oh, our founding fathers were atheists, agnostics, and deists. I say, okay, you name one who's not religious, and for every one you name that's not religious, I'll name 5 that are religious, and let's see who runs out first.
Yeah, exactly.
And they usually run out after 2 or 3, and then I can give them some more. So if you want to talk about founding fathers who hated Christianity and considered it a dangerous religion, all right, you can put Thomas Paine in there. I'm not going to go so far as to say that he considered it a dangerous religion, but he didn't like Christianity. You can put Henry Dearborn in there, who didn't like religion. Most people have no clue who Henry Dearborn is. Now, you can put Ethan Allen in there, Ethan Allen was a deist. He has what's called the Deist Bible. He was famous at the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga. He wanted to come back reincarnated as a white horse. And if you think that was typical of the beliefs of the Founding Fathers, then you know nothing about American history. You can put a couple of others in there, but you can't put Thomas Jefferson in there as hating Christianity and considering it a dangerous religion. As far as I know, I've read all the religious letters that are known to exist of Thomas Jefferson, several hundred of them. That's in there nowhere. Nowhere does he say Christianity is dangerous, and nowhere does he say he hates Christianity. Now, he does say he hates Calvinism. Late in life, he came to despise Calvinism, not Christianity. He was a big promoter of Christianity. As a matter of fact, he gave a lot of money to encourage Christianity. He gave a lot of money to build churches of all different denominations within Christianity, Baptist and Methodist and Anglican and Episcopalian and black churches. He gave a lot of money toward that. So if you want to say the Founding Fathers, well, maybe 3 or 4, but out of 250, what I would ask this professor is, okay, show me where that. Let me just start going names. Show me where Benjamin Rush believed that, or show me where John Witherspoon believed that, or show me where the Williams believed that. Show me whether William Samuel Johnson or William Livingston or James McHenry. And I'd go through all these other signers of our documents and say, show me where any of them said that, and he couldn't do it because they haven't. So this is another thing where that because he's a PhD and because it's on the History Channel, we have to accept this as absolute truth, which is absolute nonsense for us to make that acceptance. So, I mean, this really is, as characterized here, this is really a bad deal. But this is what so many professors do that I have watched personally. They will take the exception and they will make it into the rule. As long as they don't tell you about 250 Founding Fathers, they will pick out 2 or 3. And I doubt that this professor even knows who Henry Dearborn is and may not even know who Ethan Allen is. But he could probably pick out Thomas Paine. And he has picked out Thomas Jefferson, and that's not even accurate. But how many other people have read Jefferson's actual letters to know whether it's accurate or not? Because, well, he's got a PhD and he studied this and he says it is, so it must be that way. And it's absolutely not that way.
Got to take another quick break. We'll come back with more right here on WallBuilders Live. It's Foundations of Freedom Thursday.
Thomas Jefferson said, the constitutions of most of our states and of the United States assert that all power is inherent in the people, that they may exercise it by themselves, that is their right and duty, to be at all times armed, and that they are entitled to freedom of person, freedom of religion, freedom of property, and freedom of press.
Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution, but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty in Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our Founding Fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
George Washington. The Constitution approaches nearer to perfection than any other government hitherto instituted among men.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Foundations of Freedom Thursday today. And David, you've been tackling this question of whether or not the Founding Fathers were, part of the old European style of Christianity, or were they the new American view post-Reformation of Christianity. In last segment, you really debunked this idea that a whole bunch of them would have thought Christianity to be a dangerous religion, and how ridiculous that claim is by some of the folks out there.
Yeah, it is crazy. And so just summing this thing up, Thomas Jefferson did not hate Christianity. There were some doctrines within it that he did not like, but he still promoted Christianity, still faithfully attended church, still urged other people in that direction. He did not consider it a dangerous religion. He did not like European Christianity. He did not like what was happening in Europe, even at the time that he was living in America, where you still had the sword and coercion and no religious toleration, no religious conscience being promoted, but that was not America. And Jefferson did not advise others to stay away from Christianity, and the founders did not depict Christians as bloodthirsty torturers of Muslims and Jews through the Inquisition. That's just not true. So that's what's out there, and that's just absolute false. But again, that is very, very, very common on college campuses and among some high school teachers, because I personally run into them, had to deal with that. It's pretty easy to knock down the straw men that they raise, but those are things that your kids will hear.
Yeah, no doubt. Just a few minutes left. We got another question for you, David. This one comes from Mary. She's a doctor and says that she has a couple questions. We're going to get to one of them today, maybe get another one later. But she said in her local public library, they have a new scrolling events in their entrance, and they're announcing questions about the Quran. They're promoting Islamic film festivals and all these different things, grants that are given for Muslim books on history and culture and religion. And she's wondering why Christianity is so underrepresented when Islam is such a minority religion in our country. So she simply asked for a 1 hour a week a table where she could put out a Bible study, and she was refused. She was, denied that equal access, and so she's wondering, why is everyone else get all this representation, and Christianity gets such a small representation, or zero representation in this case.
And she goes on to say that my lawyer friend knew this was denying equal access and immediately put me in contact with the producer of ACLU's radio. I spent a week trying to get on the radio, as the producer told me, but everyone else in the world is trying to get through regarding Obamacare. So a couple of things here. Number one, she is right. We have an 8-0 unanimous U.S. Supreme Court decision called Westside versus Mergens that says in government-funded entities such as schools, libraries, etc., if they allow for one, they have to allow for all. So you can't do all this stuff on Islam and say, oh, well, your Bible, no, we're not going to do that. 8-0 unanimous Supreme Court decision, which means the left, the right, and the center all agreed that you have an equal right to free speech, and if the government's going to present one view, someone within that can present the other. So she can't do that. The mistake was going to the ACLU radio. To think that the ACLU will defend free speech for Christians is pretty much of a stretch. They do it about 1 out of every 500 cases probably, or whatever it is. It's very infrequent. But occasionally the ACLU will end up on the same side of free speech for Christians, but not often. What you need to do is go to some of the Christian groups that do this for free and make a living hanging up scalps on these kind of government entities that say no. And that's the Alliance Defending Freedom, that's Liberty Institute, that's Liberty Council, the Pacific Justice Institute, the Rutherford Foundation. On our website at wallbuilders.com, we have a link to legal groups, and all these groups will take this on in a heartbeat. So if you're in a city and some government entity is promoting one particular viewpoint and won't let you offer the other side of that or a different viewpoint, then there's lots of guys that'll go to bat for you in a heartbeat for free and win these cases hands down, no question.
I mean, is that becoming more and more common that as Christianity has been pushed to the side, we embrace Islam and promote it with government funds?
We've talked in programs earlier this week about moral equivalency, that every viewpoint is right. And liberals and progressives and others believe that every viewpoint is right unless it is a biblical viewpoint. If it's Christian or Jewish now, we will draw a line there. We don't believe in absolutes, but we absolutely believe that that's absolutely wrong. And it's a strange thing. We believe in free speech and equal speech for everybody unless you're from a pro-life or a Christian or traditional morality viewpoint, and then we don't think you should have a right to speak. So, I mean, theoretically, it's supposed to work as free speech, but you will find the government right now promoting Islam and protecting and covering Islam in ways that it will never do for other religions. We always point back to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision where they said you have to spend 6 weeks in public schools in California teaching Islam and having students learn Islamic prayers, etc., but we will not allow any Christianity to be taught in those schools. So, yeah, the government does prefer Islam over anything biblical at this point, but that's a good proof that they really don't believe in that there's a moral equivalency. They believe in the superiority of anything over something biblical.
Foundations of Freedom Thursday. The purpose is to dive into these foundations that made our country great. You can get some of our previous programs on our website at wallbuilderslive.com by clicking on archives. Thanks for listening to WallBuilders Live.
President Calvin Coolidge said, "The more I study the Constitution, the more I realize that no other document devised by the hand of man has brought so much progress and happiness to humanity. To live under the American Constitution is the greatest political privilege that was ever accorded to the human race."
We stand undivided.